Awesome, we are live. So first I want to thank everybody for joining us for this Ask the Expert session. Titled Welcome to Mixed Reality, Tools and Strategies to Approach Mixed Reality Development. My name is Jesse McCulloch. I am your host for this session. If you want to engage with our experts, use the chat to ask the questions. The questions will appear to all attendees once they're approved by a moderator. Experts will answer the questions verbally and over chat as determined by the moderator. And then experts will provide resources once the session is near the end. So we've got some CTAs for everybody, so make sure you stay tuned for that. This session may be recorded. Help out our moderators, don't spam or post inappropriate comments in the chat, and adhere to the Microsoft Code of Conduct, which Dean has helpfully posted in the Q&A section. And again, here it is for everybody to see real quick. I want to introduce our on-screen experts. First, I want to introduce Roger Liu, who is a software engineer 2 for our mixed reality team. Welcome, Roger. Roger is the resident organizer for Microsoft's Employee Fighting Game Group. I don't even know what that is, Roger. Do you want to explain a little bit?
Oh, there's a lot of good fighting games. Some people, I'm sure you know of Street Fighter or Super Smash Brothers. So we have a group at Microsoft that plays fighting games. We used to play it after work locally, and then we haven't been able to meet up locally for a while. So we use the great online infrastructure, which is sometimes not very great, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's the world we're living in these days. So welcome, Roger. Thanks for joining us. Also, we have Summer Wu, who's a program manager on our developer platform team. Summer has lived on 4 different continents, which I am super jealous of. If you tell me Antarctica is one of them, I'll be even more jealous.
Unfortunately, Antarctica is not, but maybe one day I'll get to hang out with the penguins. Future
goals, right? And I am Jesse McCulloch. I'm a senior program manager on our developer ecosystem team. And something a lot of people may not know, I had a previous career as a mountain rescue medic. So I used to climb up Mount Hood and rescue injured people and get them down from the mountain, which is not a traditional way you get into software engineering for sure. In addition to our on-screen experts, we also have some off-screen experts who will be monitoring the Q&A and answering questions there. We have Brent Jackson, who's a program manager 2 on our developer platform team as well. Brent gets all of his exercise either in VR or on an electric bike. We have Nick Klingensmith, who's the Mixed Reality Academy lead engineer in our reactor down in San Francisco. Nick has worked on over 100 games and has built tools that have been used on every major game console, so that's pretty awesome. And then we have Sean Kerwala, who is a program manager 2 on our developer platform team as well. He is in charge of all of our docs and stuff for mixed reality, and he's very passionate about content and learning. So with that, we are going to go ahead and get going with the Q&A. I'm going to jump over and see if the audience has anything super interesting already to ask us. Let's see. So first, somebody asked, is there any news on mixed reality dev days for 2021? So interesting question. So for those who aren't familiar, we do a mixed reality specific conference, usually around this build timeframe. This year we have disconnected it from build, and we are doing it, but we're not ready to save a date yet or anything like that. So keep an eye out for more information to come on there. The next question I'm going to start with is for Summer. There's a question about we know that Unreal is a mixed reality partner as far as a game engine. Can you describe what platforms or what devices people can use to build on Unreal for Microsoft Mixed Reality?
Gotcha. So this is what platforms you can use Unreal to build for?
Yeah, I'm guessing like which devices can they build for?
Gotcha. So you can definitely build for HoloLens 2 as of Unreal 4.23 and above. You can also build for Windows Mixed Reality VR devices. And now we've recently as of Unreal 4.26, added support for all OpenXR supported devices. So that covers all of Microsoft's mixed reality devices, HoloLens and Windows mixed reality VR, as well as every other device in the industry that supports OpenXR.
That's awesome. OpenXR is a super interesting one to talk about because really we're seeing a lot of our industry game engine partners move to that. We're seeing the same thing with Unity as well, which really opens up the platform to just about everybody. To be able to build on using Unity or Unreal and target a whole multitude of devices, and that's something that Microsoft is really excited about. And speaking of kind of open source stuff, Roger, do you want to talk a little bit about Mixed Reality Toolkit and how that helps developers start building mixed reality experiences?
Yeah, so Mixed Reality Toolkit is a open source library. We're on GitHub that gives developers a lot of tools to just get started deploying whatever kind of apps or building the apps they want for like any sort of MR devices. We have support for HoloLens and mixed reality headsets, Windows mixed reality headsets like new HD Reverb. And we also have support for very popular headsets like the Oculus Quest. And if you have neither of those, we do also have support for using things like the Leap Motion in order to do hand tracking. So all of that is on our public GitHub. All of our code and all of our improvements go on there. And we have a new release coming out soon. So anyone who wants the latest and greatest can pick that up, I think, within the months.
Do you want to dive deeper on that new release at all? What new stuff is coming or what's exciting about it?
So it's a dot release, so it's just 2.7 going up from 2.6. This one is relatively minor. We have support for a lot more OpenXR things, but our big release is coming at end of year, where we're making a lot of core improvements to our main system and also addressing a lot of the previous architectural roadblocks we've had. So it's becoming more modular, and it should be easier to consume. Whether you might only care about our UI components and need to use those rather than take on our entire system. You'll be able to do that for 3.0.
Awesome. List here real quick. So there's one I'm going to take here. Somebody asked where to go. Any news on the availability of the Microsoft Mesh SDK that can be shared? So for those of you who aren't familiar with Mesh, we announced it at Ignite back a few months ago, and it is a platform for building collaborative experiences for mixed reality across a bunch of devices. That's currently in private preview. We don't have any timeline on when that will go into a public preview. We're really building towards quality and making sure that we hit a bunch of quality bars before we put it out to the public preview state. So no news right now, but the best way to keep informed is to join our developer program if you aren't, and we'll have a link to that at the end of the presentation. Roger, I'm going to pop this one over to you again. Any recommendations for GitHub and a Unity MR dev system, alternative setups you suggest, or other best practices?
So this is an interesting question. I mean, so there are a few ways to consume our package. One of which is just to clone our main GitHub repository and work off the main branch. However, you will be warned if you're working in like a production environment. We do sometimes push changes that cause some regressions and obviously aren't fully vetted. If you're looking for very stable releases, we do have .unity packages. So these are just files you drag into Unity and they get thrown into your assets folder. Those are published on the GitHub page and you can easily access them and get those whenever you need. Our other alternative is that we have a independent program called Mixed Reality Feature Tool, and this one lets you pull in packages and whatnot live from our feature tool repository. And this one will basically put the assets in your .packages folder, and so they become immutable, and you can't really accidentally make a change there that ends up breaking your project. And those files will always be kosher by our standards and fit for public release. So 3 main methods for you to consume Mixed Reality Toolkit and get started on the projects.
Awesome. Summer, somebody asked, any tips for someone who's just getting started in mixed reality development?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first place I'd recommend you go is docs.microsoft.com. We have a lot of great tutorials, getting started resources on the site that will walk you through starting from like installing the tools, getting the prerequisites and your machine set up, all the way to building your first Hololens 2 or mixed reality app. So definitely go there to get started. And then I'll just give a quick plug on the Unreal side. We've been working closely with Epic Games to create a comprehensive 12-course series, like a learning path that will walk people through the steps of building an Unreal application with Hololens 2 and how to use all the features that Hololens provides. So that will be coming, looking like sometime in June, so in the near future for folks looking to get started there. But again, docs.microsoft.com, lots of great tutorials to get folks started.
Awesome, thanks, Summer. There's a question, will Hololens financing ever be made available to independent developers? It is currently locked down to businesses. So I will actually answer that. So we do have developer financing for individual independent developers available if you are in the US. And even though the form for it looks like it's really tailored to businesses, you can apply as a sole proprietor, and that will still process the application as if you're not a business. So that is absolutely an option in the US. We do not have financing anywhere else in the world right now, though. That's currently limited to just the US. Next question. I'm not sure who will be the best to answer this. So will Directx stay a supported tech in the future? Are either of you wanting to answer this one, Roger or Summer? And if not, I will take it.
I can't say I know too much about our Directx plans.
Okay, awesome. So I will actually take this. So Directx is absolutely going to remain supported, but I do want to point out that what we're pushing towards is kind of using our OpenXR APIs, even for a native development platform. So while Directx, native will stay as a supported platform, we really want to push people to moving towards the OpenXR APIs, just so that it gives you flexibility to go target a bunch of devices besides HoloLens and our VR devices. A few questions about web. So I'm going to pop this one over to Summer. It says, I think your focus is on supporting Unity, especially for MRTK, but what about support for Webxr and things like 3JS?
Yeah, good question. So we definitely do support Webxr, and if you have a HoloLens 2 and update to the latest version of Edge, you'll find that the browser supports Webxr, and you can try out Webxr experiences directly in device. And by extension, that should work in Windows Mixed Reality VR headsets as well. So in terms of the development story for Webxr, you can use really any 3D JavaScript platform that supports Webxr. Say the one that on our team we've really been focused on bringing up support in is Babylon.js. It's an awesome open source 3D web engine based on JavaScript. You can go check it out. And I saw a question later on too about that's native Babylon support for HoloLens. We've also been working closely with the Babylon team to bring up Babylon native support for HoloLens too. So that's still early, something that's coming down the pipeline. But today you can already get started with Webxr on device.
Awesome. Next question is, what do you suggest to start with for someone who wants to start MR development? I do have experience with WPF desktop applications. Roger, do you want to cover just kind of the different game engines we support? And then I might throw in a plug after that.
Sure. So, I mean, we do have Unity support. I think our current recommended version is Unity 2018.4 plus. So any Unity version, you can get started developing for mixed reality on there. And see the docs. We have a lot of documentation on how to deploy to many of platform. And obviously, Summer has talked about our support for Unreal Engine. There is a mixed reality toolkit Unreal, which is also you can also use to get started there. As far as more general advice on getting started in development, a lot of it is, just start by putting together very simple building block apps and, going from there. Even something so trivial as, oh, here's a set of buttons that's floating in the air and you press them and they change colors. If you look at one of the published things on the Windows Store for Mixed Reality Toolkit, which is our hand interaction demo, that is something that is at its core, setting up very many tools and whatnot to, play around and show that the motion controls work. And the mixed reality field is still very young, and I think even very simple apps, there's a lot of value in learning how to create those and getting used to the very many tools, just because there's a lot of different ways to interact with mixed reality and AR, VR UI compared to more traditional platforms.
Awesome. And then I want to plug StereoKit, which is an engine that Nick has been working on developing. And that is open source, and it's kind of a code first. So if you're a .NET developer working in C#, that should be really familiar looking or feeling to you. So if you go do a search for StereoKit, that's also a really great option for you. Nick's been developing that and takes feature requests, and he's super supportive. So if you have issues or whatnot, pop into the GitHub and file an issue, and he's really good about answering and putting features in. And then additionally, I want to kind of plug our learning path. So if you go to MS Learn, we actually have a handful of modules on MS Learn, a couple of them about getting started in mixed reality that will allow you to build experiences without even having a device. So being able to run them in the editor and kind of see. So MS Learn's a great opportunity for people who are just brand new to get started and get a little bit of experience going there. What is currently the most efficient development flow to rapidly iterate in Unity and then debug and test in headset for the HoloLens 2? Do you want to talk about remoting, Roger?
Yeah, so we have a great feature in Mixed Reality Toolkit that is actually built in Unity called Holographic Remoting. I believe if you search up Holographic Remoting on our docs page, you'll find the page for how to get that set up. So basically what it lets you do is that it lets you take the HoloLens headset, connect it to your device, connect it to your PC or Mac or whatever. And then from there, when you start up Holographic Remoting and launch the app on the HoloLens, when you hit play in the Unity editor, the scene in the Unity editor will appear on your HoloLens, and you can basically debug and iterate without having to build and deploy, which itself takes minutes and is a little bit cumbersome, just as far as rapidly iterating. And it lets you see all the good debug messages and output from the Unity console itself. So I would definitely suggest that for iterating and testing and debugging for HoloLens 2 development.
Awesome. We talked about Babylon support for HoloLens. There's a question about what are the pros and cons of Unity versus Unreal. Do you want to speak to that at all, Summer?
Sure. So, ultimately, we provide full support for both Unity and Unreal across our mixed reality devices. And what we're seeing largely is that, certain people tend to prefer Unity for certain reasons, and other people tend to prefer Unreal for other reasons. So at least from the Microsoft perspective, our philosophy is that we want to meet developers where they are and provide support for the tools that developers want to use. And so Unity support has been for HoloLens 2 and mixed reality devices has been around for longer than Unreal. Unreal support first came online, I want to say summer of 2019 as part of Unreal 4.23. So it's a little bit newer. And then Roger talked about our mixed reality toolkits for Unity and Unreal. The mixed reality toolkit for Unity just has a lot more features and components than the one for Unreal. But on the Unreal side, the team is working on getting to feature parity and providing all of the components and features that developers in Unreal are looking for. And so, in terms of our support, like our goal is to support both equally, both fully. But just in terms of like a length of time, you'll probably see a lot more resources at the moment for Unity than Unreal. But on the Unreal side, that's something the team is dedicated to building out. And so if there's any feedback, any gaps or things that are missing, definitely welcome any and all feedback to kind of bring that to where our Unity support is.
Awesome, thanks, Summer. There is a question about building for HoloLens with a Mac, and so I want to address that one real quick. So one of the roadblocks you run into when developing with a Mac is that for HoloLens, you have to have the Windows SDKs installed, which you can't do on a Mac. So for people who want to use Mac to develop, typically we see people using either Parallels or can't remember, or Boot Camp to run Windows on a different partition. So that's definitely an option for you. And then we've heard of people using some virtualizations and virtual machine options as well. So that's kind of the story for building with Mac for the HoloLens. I don't want to say that it will never ever happen, but it's not currently something that we're working on right now. And as I jump through some other questions here. You guys have a lot of questions about stuff that we are not ready to talk about yet, so I'm trying to sort through some of this stuff. For intros on MRTK, UnPark's tutorials have been extremely useful for me. Are the courses Summer spoke about in that same direction? Do you want to dive in a little bit deeper on those courses, Summer?
Yeah, happy to talk about those courses. So this will be a comprehensive learning path. We've got 12 different modules starting from like welcome to mixed reality all the way to using MRTK for Unreal, using spatial mapping, using Azure spatial anchors, etc. So those will be like each of those, say using spatial mapping, will be broken down into a series of like 5 to 10 minute video modules, which walks you through all the steps of like creating an application with that feature. So it'll be very step by step, providing some sample assets and sample code to get you started, and then kind of teaching you how to hook things up to take advantage of the system. So yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Do we have a timeline for when that's going to launch, Summer?
Yeah, it's looking right now like the end of June.
Awesome. And going to keep with you for this next question, Summer. If Webxr expands, will it develop into a Unity-free or Unreal-free, for that matter, tool for XR development?
Yeah, so right now, you can use Babylon.js or other 3D engines that support Webxr to create, an experience without Unity or Unreal, just your normal web technologies. So that is something we support today and definitely will continue to support. Maybe just to share some, at least right now, pros and cons of Webxr versus native. So Webxr runs entirely in the browser. whereas a native application, is running on device and can run offline. And so if you want something that can run offline, you might still want to build a native application. Also, there's some features right now that for Webxr that aren't quite at parity with OpenXR native, so that's something to keep in mind. And then lastly, just in terms of performance, like typically running an application native on device tends to be a little bit more performant than running something that is contained in the browser. But then, on the flip side, Webxr is just in many ways a lot more accessible for people. You don't need to install or download an app. You just open up your browser, go to the site, and can launch the experience right away. So yeah, that development flow is separate from Unity or Unreal. However, we will continue as a team supporting Unity and Unreal. Like, they're great partners. Our partners continue to build great experiences on them. And so we're planning to continue that partnership as well as pushing forward on Webxr.
And
Awesome.
Dean here, by the way, about 4 minutes left in the event, just so everyone knows. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. So what tools are provided by Microsoft for VR and AR development? So I'll do kind of a quick rundown of these. So on the Unity side, we have, obviously you can use Unity to build for our stuff. Roger talked about the mixed reality toolkit as well. We've got a toolkit called World Locking Tools. So this allows you to use the HoloLens 2 in a larger space. So there's a limitation with larger spaces where over time you get a little bit of drift just because of, if you have holograms that are very large, over distance, even a minute amount translates into a large distance over space. So the world locking tools allow you to kind of compensate for that and relocate a little bit better. What else is there? We've got the OpenXR plugin. And then on the Unreal side, we've got the Unreal UI tools, which is kind of the mixed reality toolkit stuff for Unreal. We've got remoting for both Unity and Unreal, so that lets you go in and run directly from the editor on your headset, both for development purposes, but you can actually also build an experience that does that so that you can use the processing power of your computer rather than the headset itself. The HoloLens 2 has a mobile GPU in it, so you can only push so many polygons out. But if you can offload that to a computer, you get a lot more resources. With our mixed reality services, we have Azure Spatial Anchors, which allows you to put anchors down in space and then attach digital content to that and relocate that. And that works across devices with HoloLens 2, mobile devices. We've got Azure Remote Rendering. So that's the remoting, but offloading it into an Azure cloud and letting the processing take place there. We've rendered models in the billions of polygons on a HoloLens 2, which is pretty amazing to see. Azure Object Anchors, which is another service that allows you to anchor stuff to objects. So say you're a car manufacturer and you want to be able to anchor your digital content to a physical car, we can use the device to recognize that car and do that anchoring automatically. Am I missing anything that you guys can think of? And then Mesh, is the new one that's coming. And then what Mesh allows you to do is use our identification platform to bring in avatars and presence and collaboration to your mixed reality stuff across all kinds of devices. And I think with that and our being close to at time, I'm going to drop our final slide in. And so if you want to continue your learning with Microsoft, we want you to go to aka.ms learn at build, and that's a great place to see all of the different content from build. We encourage you to join our developer program. So if you go to aka.ms/iwantmr. That will let you sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be the first to kind of get new news and information as it comes out. And then always explore our mixed reality documentation at aka.ms/mrdocs. And with that, I want to thank Summer and Roger for being our on-screen experts, and then Nick, Sean, and Brent for being our off-screen experts, answering a bunch of questions for everybody. And hope everybody has a great rest of your build.